So today we're going to fit a rear bar to a 300 series Land Cruiser. These are a bit better than the front bar, as in there's no variations on the rear, they're all pretty much the same. We're going to start by removing the plastic trim from here, all the bolts along the bottom, little plastic covers off your tail light, screw at the top, all the screws from the bottom and your trailer plug if it's already got one fitted. If not, you do need to buy that loom from the dealership. Toyota Genuine Loom plugs in just in the back. It's just really quick to fit. Parking sensors, this has got a cam lock, so he over centers and then he'll just pull out, super easy. Then on the side, all your side flare is a couple of clips and a couple of screws, and he'll clip off, put him off to the side. For later, there's a plastic clip out of here, and then you can simply go along, unclip, put him aside. Alright, so just a couple of little things getting ready. We've unzip tied everything just so it's out the way. We need to remove our tow hook from the bottom that's bolted down here. This wiring loom is bolted around the side. There's normally a little hard cover. It just gets in your way. I like to leave all this bit so it's all insulated and still held there. But if you can literally unclip the top and the bottom, cut him off, and it just leaves that all still insulated and secure, but it lets you move the wire back a little bit. We can zip tie that once the bar's on later, but it's just out the way. Alright, so now we're ready to put our sub-assemblies on. So we'll put our cross tube in there that's also a spacer. There's a little plastic clip bit which we'll remove from here as well. Now these are going to go on like that. But first, before they can go on, these will then become our mounting platform. We've got a bolt that's going to go through there, through the existing hole. And another one up this end which is going to use the existing hole, but we have to get a nut in there first because they're non-captive. So this one we're going to, whatever one's easier for you, from the front, from the back, there's lots to choose from. Same as this critter here, we're going to go, there's a nice big hole in the back. We're going to come in above the muffler, get them ready, get them lined up before we put this on. Preparation and getting them all nice and lined up makes this bit a lot easier to put on later. Obviously then our large 12mm bolt's going to pass through there and just nut and bolt. The big slot here, he's going to come right through, he's going to come out the top and actually bolt into the rear bar later, so he doesn't get a bolt yet. And the little tiny one is an M8, which is going to be the only captive one. So I like to put the captive one in first, so it'll help balance it there, then you can get all the others lined up. That's now on, so we've got our nut on a stick fed through the hole at the back here, 12mm bolt through there, an M12x40 coarse thread. Our long one through here, nut and bolt, M12 as well, M12x40 into this nut on a stick. Now we're just going to bend him around. You can snap these off once they're done up later if you wish. I like to snap them off with at least a little bit of a tag, so that if you ever want to get it out, it doesn't just fall in the rail. At least that way he'll do up, he'll be happy, but he won't fall inside for if you ever need to remove it. The little M8, you can use him, do him up, undo him, just to get everything to sit lined up while you're trying to get your nut and a stick and a bolt in there. Once it's all on there, we like to just back it off a little bit so it's got plenty of play. So when we put the rear bar on, we've got just a little bit of adjustment in each direction. But that now that's done. We'll obviously replicate it on that side, and then we can put the rear bar on. Our next step is we're going to prep the bar ready to go on the car. Now, we like to put it face down. You start with your reverse lights, which are going to go, you tuck them in at the top, let them drop in, put your bolt through. The next step is tail lights. Now, a lot of people struggle with these. When you get them out the packet, they've got a little tab in here, screwdriver, push with your thumb there, and they come apart. Then that pop rivets into our housing. Then you feed your wires through and obviously put them back in as we have here. You can wire the bar completely. So if it's a new fit, like as in it hasn't got a trailer plug on it already, you can actually rivet your genuine trailer plug kit from Toyota to there, or bolt or screw, and actually hardwire everything into the trailer plug because that's where it's getting wired into anyway. The colours are an exact match, as in yellow for indicator, brown for tail, red for stop, The one that gets everyone is black is an earth, black is reverse. But all of this can be wired into that, so when you fit this onto the car, you'll simply plug it in. The car we're doing today's got trailer brakes already and that fitted, so we can't take it off. But yeah, wire everything together with a tail. Now, if it's going to get a jerry box or a wheel carrier, while you're doing this tail light, tap into your tail light and run a dual core out this side ready. You like to run it through there so it's not going to get pinched. They do have this little slot for running the parking sensors through, which you can zip tie. So that's the next thing. Once you've taken the parking sensor loom out of the bar, we've got a screwdriver and peeled off these little plastic bits. We leave the double-sided tape on because they actually are still tacky, and then when you bolt them into our little clamp, it stops them trying to skid around. The outer housing will locate, so you'll feel it lock in. That's good. Clip with the feet going down, and then we can simply do them up. And then he'll be nice and tight. Make sure this plug is on the appropriate side of the car. It's very easy to put the loom in backwards. As I say, the parking sensor loom goes through here. It's got room for a zip tie. So once you've got that all in, again, another clip up in this corner. So you'll get all them bolted, get all your wires zip tied. They've got the little channels to run it through in the top, so you're not going to be hanging down in your trailer plug area. Like that, we're ready to go in the car. Because we've got all them loose, they can rock back, the sub-assemblies. You've got to make sure you give them a jiggle to get it on. They will sit on our little platform that's here, which is that big long bolt we spoke of earlier, that's going to go right through the bottom and right up through this little bracket on the back. It's up to you. From there we do our side bolts, which are a M12 by 40, which are going to go through here. These are all captive. This real big long critter, I think it's an M12 by 150. It's going to go up through this hole, harbour the exhaust, out through the top hole. Alright, that's all the bolts in loose. We'll do the wing braces later, which are up here. For now, we can check we're happy with it, because this has obviously got quite a lot of adjustment. So you can pick 2 points on the car. You can go off the mud flat. You want to get it nice and even. Do your sub-assemblies up, do the bar up. Doesn't matter too much. The sub-assembly bolt you can actually still get through our rear bar chassis brackets, got allocation for it. Get everything up tight. This should be semi-parallel, so you can measure that, rock the bar to where you want it. It's not overly critical. We're going to trim the bumper to it, but we like to get that pretty close to parallel. And obviously even left to right. As I say, this has got adjustment everywhere, so even them up, get that all nice and tight, nice and even left to right. Then once that's all tight, breaker bar, we'll then go to the next step, putting the wing braces on. So now we've done the sub-assembly up, so all our bolts here, they're all, you can get to them all pretty much with the rattle gun. Our long one through the middle, I like to do that first. I took a measurement from the car, so we were 45mm both sides, checking it's even that way. I do the long one up first because that pulls everything in tight, and then followed by all the rest of them. Double check on the side. You can tilt it a little bit. Generally you don't have to, as long as it's fairly parallel within sort of a few mil, that's fine. As I say, we're just going to cut the plastic to suit it anyway. The next step, once everything's tight, is to fit our wing braces. This is going to have our M12 bolt through here and 2 little 8mm ones. They are a little bit fiddly to get in. We don't have to pull anything off for it, it will come through here. It can go in front or behind. Normally it goes behind. Trick is to go forward in the wheel arch like that and jiggle him back. You can get a soft mallet, because obviously once it gets in place it will be loose. once it gets in there now we've got a little bit of play. So we can move it to where we want. Top bolt, it's going to go through the existing hole. Just move him back a little tiny bit. There. Alright, now that we're in position, this is, like I say, it's a bit tedious to get in there once you're in. Now there's a plastic clip and a few things in the way, however if you slide your washer up in there first, like so, you can come through on there, like that, get your nylock on, and if you have a look in here, Stelbell, your big washer is already behind there, so if you slide the washer in first, then go the nut, you don't have to unclip everything, and obviously the more you do it up, it's going to have more room. Followed from there, we're just going to do our little 8mm, which we're going to go through here and through our slot. Everything's slotted, everything's got adjustment, so the trick with this is you want to do up your 12mm one to the chassis, so that if that does pull up as you do it up or move at all, these are slotted, they've got plenty of room, and then do these ones up and it'll fix it into position. It's also a good time to point out, as I was showing before, this wire, when I took the hard housing off it, now it's got plenty of room, you can zip tie it or whatever, but if you had left that hard housing there, it would have had no room left. Our earth one's still in behind the bracket because this has got a gap. It's not going to crush it or anything, so that's got plenty of room. Also, don't forget to plug your parking sensor loom, which is up on top of the chassis. It's very easy to get right to the end. I don't think I've done it just yet, but it's up on top here, the big plug. Oh, he does have got it plugged in. It's very easy to get to the end and put your bumper and everything on, and I've forgotten to plug that back in. Now it's just tighten everything up. Alright, so now we're going to put our carrier on. We've put our bearing in the bottom. We've put our gas strut on the car ready. Now, the trick with these is we're going to go on and not let the stopper engage so that we can come right around here. Can then go to wherever we want to make this gas strut go on. And using the leverage of this, we're going to come round and then get the stopper. So now the stopper's engaged. If you don't do that, because this is now under tension, you'll never get them on later. So from there, we're going to put our top bearing in. Line up your hole in the castle nut. So just firm, doesn't have to be crazy tight, but obviously a little bit of tension. You can use a large socket. Well, you can't hit this directly on here because you'll dent it, but a large socket normally over the top. Obviously we've got a tool for it. Done. Now we're going to fit our latch. So we've got our M10 button heads. We're going to have them sitting in through the slots. You can go from the underneath or from the top, it's up to you. It's a little awkward from the top. Alright, so now we're going to align the latch. It's easy if you get a friend to help you. We want that to be nice and central and to that end. These will hold it like that. And you can come up from the back. Alright, so now that they're all done up tight, as I say, that's nice and central, the weld is all in the end there. Obviously tight. If they don't have a real good over center, you can put anything, an extension of screwdriver in here and just pull that out just a tiny bit, because sometimes when they've been shut in the packet without actually being over a latch, they will flatten out. It gives you that. The more that has a slight curve in it, the tighter the over center. So we want them to actually have that real good like that. Now that our jerry box is on, we're going to wire the number plate. Just recapping what we said before, We've wired all the lights to the middle and we've hooked them into our trailer plug, so that's finished now. We normally would have done that on the bench. This car, because it had trailer brakes, we had to do it in a little bit of a different order. As far as this goes, there is when you put the bumper back on, there's conveniently a hole for a grommet from the old parking sensor. It's going to come out through there once we put the bumper back on. And this is going to run underneath, which we'll zip tie to the ball, and then it's going to come up through this. There's a hole in the bottom, and then it's got spots for little tiny zip ties, so we're going to zip tie him like that, and up to our number plate light, which we're going to obviously, you can put a terminal on it, solder it, whatever floats your boat. So now that we're finished, that's how it'll all be. We've terminated it, we've zip tied it, insulated it, everything's fitted, and again around this side, you just do it. Doesn't have to be tight, a zip tie to the ball. It just stops the wire getting pinched in here. A couple of very critical things just to touch on. Number plate bolts. They're a button head, so they come from the inside out. If you put them backwards, when you put your jerry in, you're going to have a nice nut-shaped slot in your jerry can box. So they go that way. Same as your pop rivets. When you put your light on, they're going to go from the inside out. So everything on the inside is smooth. Not going to have any Sharpie bits. Don't stress about the wire being there, because the radius of any jerry can won't be where that is. So you'll find, even though you panic that's going to shear that off, it won't actually touch it. So the radius will be like that and it'll be fine. As I say, the most critical ones are number plate bolts. They must be in this way. We go on to the bumper cut. Our next step is the bumper cut. Now this can seem a bit daunting, but it's really not. The most important thing is, it doesn't matter if you cut it 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times. Just, yeah, take your time. Doesn't matter if it's too big, you can cut it again. You can't add it back on. So what we're going to do on the car, we're going to measure in 2, 3, 4 spots, whatever you're comfortable with. But generally speaking, I like to go from this point. It's an easy point of reference, straight down. This point down to here, and then maybe even one from here straight down. Then across the back, once you've got that height, which is pretty much dead vertical from the tail light, you can use this nice body line as a reference to go, okay, I'm a few mil above that, or below that, I'm going to continue it the whole way around using that body line as a reference. What we're going to do once you've put your marks on it, you're going to use masking tape, nice wide stuff. So if you, I normally use a grinder with a cut-off wheel, but whatever you want to cut it with, you can use an air hacksaw. If you bump it, you're not going to scratch your paint. So we always put the masking tape on the top side. Now, our pinch weld needs a 10 mil gap. So what we normally do is I aim to get a very good gap without pinch weld, and then I get it so the bumper will clip on and be all happy, and then I mark the 10 mil from my bumper. A really good trick is to get a pen. You can normally tape the lid of a pen is 10 mil to the pen. You can actually run the pen around the bar and it'll give you an absolutely perfect 10 mil gap. Then put your pinch weld on, and that's it. That way you've got 10 mil leeway. If you're a little bit here or there, you're not going to have ruined the bumper. Don't try and go for the final cut first. Doesn't matter if you've done one before, you're much better cutting it at least twice. 420. Another good thing to note, this comes around flat and then it dives downhill. So even if you want, you can take a measurement from here, 1, 2, even 3, 4, but just when you're marking it, don't be afraid, or don't get scared, because you'll take a couple of measurements and think, oh, they don't line up. That's because they don't line up. They come around flat and then it goes downhill. So just be wary of that. He's going to come around flat like that. It's about here, it dives down. This line is actually the intersection. So when you see a finished job, that line lines up with the change in direction. So we're actually going to then go from there. Now I have gone the exact dimension, so I'll actually cut a smidge above that, or at least cut my line away, otherwise it won't physically fit back on. But then, like I said, then you can run your texture or a pen around for your final cut later. You'll see once we get here, it is pretty much the body line. So then you can use that body line to mark it the rest of the way. No matter how careful you are, it's very, very easy to scratch that on the hub. I like to put some tape there and on the hub so that you just make sure you're a bit guarded. Yeah, it is a bit tedious to get it in. Right, once you've deburred it all, we're going to then fit the pinch weld. I'm going to make sure everything's nice and clean. Around this side, I've put the grommet in where the wiring's going to come out. It's easier to do it now because it does end up half in the pinch weld. Same deal, got a blanking one in that side and then fit. Pinch weld just pushes on. The length. We want to finish here because the flare's going to be there. And you're ready to go back on. All clipped home, we've put all our trims back on, we've got that sitting nice and even. Obviously we can put our clip back in there. We can sit our, I like to cover here in masking tape so you can sit the flare with it running over, mark your height, trim it, trial fit it, again trim it again. We want it to have a little bit of gap. We're not going to run pinch weld on the flare and then clip him home with all your clips back on. There's 2 screws, 2 little tiny clips. Then we're ready to do the mud flat. Alright, so now we're going to do the mud flaps. We're getting very close to the end. We'll put all our clips. We'll left a little gap to allow for body movement. All that's fitted back off. We're now going to do the mud flap. Now, because JR Sports got these ginormous, huge ones, we throw them away because they're useless. We supply a generic aftermarket one, which is going to go like that and tidy it up. So, now, you can run a bigger one if you wish. This is quite a discreet small one. If you've got huge tyres and you want to run a larger one, by all means you can. The wheel arch plastics all vary slightly depending on whether it's a GR Sport, GXL, etc. So we don't pre-drill these for you. It's something you'll have to do yourself. So wheel off. We normally like to go with the top hole there. Line that up. Cut like 2 to 3 rivets here with stainless rivets with penny washers. And then we like to do one through the plastics. It'll just make this all nice and tidy and clean. Otherwise you're left with all this grossness. The next step is camera kit or camera relocation. Now there's 2 options for this. One is we relocate it centrally on the door, which is goes into your old number plate holes. What's essential on looking out between the 2 carriers, gives you a pretty good view. It's the bracket that comes with the bar for no extra charge. It's the cheapest option. The other option is our camera kit, which is a little more involved. That will be a separate set of instructions. However, it does plug in up here, piggybacks the loom from here. You'll run it down, it comes out the grommet in the middle, and you'll run it up the arm of whatever side you choose to run it on. Because it plugs in here, it can be go down the left or the right side, it doesn't really matter. However, you're still going to have to get the camera out the door. So this part of the instructions will still be applicable even if you're doing that. So either way, you need the camera out the door. So start by middle trim at the front, follow by the sides, and just work your way around. It is got very tight clips. I like to start at the front, gently work your way around until you get the whole trim off, and then I'll show you how to remove the camera. I find you bring the door down halfway is the easiest way to get to this. You've got the 2 bolts that are in your door controller, your opener and shutter. A bolt here and a bolt here. That's all that's in that main trim. When you come to the outside, these are a clip. Feels horrible. Now you don't have to take it the whole way off. We only really need to go to there. All we're wanting to do is to get to that. So with a long extension. And bear in mind this camera's got a washer as well, so has got quite a bit going on. Now it is still clipped from the inside. Once you get it like that, you can go back up. And you're going to have the 2 square clips on the inside which you've got to release. So it is releasing the little tabs in the corners. And I'll push through. So we've unplugged our camera and we've undone the water lead. Don't be silly like me and wonder why your magnet's not working. The door is aluminium. There are 2 clips. Now you just got to release each corner and then push them through. Keep them, we're going to want them again. And he will come out. Boom, like that. Now we're going to put the blanking plate back on there. So what you're going to do is you're going to put them back in. Like so. Then we're ready to put our blanking plate back on. I've put the grommet from the original loom in our blanking plate. Our reverse camera is going to come out this hole and go into our cover, which is going to be here. So now, because we need a bit more length, there is enough length, it's just all bundled up in here, so you have to work your way back. Very, very carefully. By untaping it all. Has many layers of tape. knowing where it's going, that it was down here, you can see that that end came in. You can follow this up, so if you're a little bit scared with the knife, that you can actually see the lump in that loom. That is our main bit we want. Just be very careful, obviously. There is an abundance of length in all of here. Now, once you've got it all cut, you can get rid of all the tape. Obviously, we're going to retape it all up. But everything's got a bundle of length there. So there's plenty to do what we need to do. You've just got to take your time and find it. Because all of this loop is our power of the one that we want. So much as it's a bit tedious to get it, you don't need to cut, you don't need to extend. You've just got to take the time to get all that out. You can just clip, unplug. Now, obviously now we're going to go and tape all that back up. We've got what we wanted. This critter. Let me swap to this side. We're going to route him up there. And that is our camera loom. We've got heaps of length. We can plug him back in. So like I say, there's plenty there. You've just got to take the time to untape it all carefully. Got our supplied camera bracket. You can colour code this or leave it black. This being a GR, obviously it has a lot of black and red accents, so we've left it black. We've plugged our wiring loom in, our squirter hose. This will run out the top corner. Original number plate screws can go back in. Now there's a little vacancy in the corner here for the hose and everything to come back out of, so it doesn't squash it. Doing it this way, we're fully retaining our squirter, so the camera washer, everything as per how it was factory. Now, as you can see, when it's said and done, I've retaped it up, I've re-zip tied it back to its original clip. I've clipped all these back in neatly, I've taped up my wire. Now as you can see, with that all in place, I've got to put my grommet back in. The water hose, you can re-zip tie him up, make sure you keep your one-way valve, which will be your joiner. So we'll go to there. He will go on there. Then you'll re-zip tie him to there. Now that this is all unpicked, we've got bulk length, so we can route him back up under there. We can pull him so we're nice and snug. He will reach perfectly, like it's made for it. And then what I like to do is get some little zip ties and just zip tie it all back in there, and it will all look factory. Just be, as I say, this part looked a bit daunting, but if you follow it from this end, so you can actually see the thick one coming through, and just take your time. It's literally got tape, heat shrink, then tape. And just do one layer at a time, peel it off. You really can't get into any trouble, and nothing needs extending it. Once a couple more zip ties, and it'll all look like you never touched it. It is a bit of a job, but it keeps you with factory camera, factory wiring, and the original squirter, so that it'll all work, like all functions work like we were never here before. The compromise of going the camera relocation onto down there is you're going to lose that washer. So when your car reads obstruction because it's dirty, with this setup you can just wash it, rock on. Otherwise the other one, it does, the head unit will override your sensors and that sort of thing. So this is quite a good solution, and it's obviously cheap. You might also note I didn't unplug that at any time, I just pulled it through. That way you don't have to disconnect the battery or anything. Once we haven't disconnected anything as such. All right. One of the very last things is putting your wheel on. Now, it is very critical that the wheel touches the upright. We like to have a little bit of crush. So how we set it up, get your ruler, eye it through. You can use a straight edge if you want. So that's 180. So that would mean we want here to be 170. Better to have too much than not enough, because the tyre's just going to squish. It's not going to hurt the tyre. But what it does, it stops this trying to rattle over time and undo these two bolts. Once that's done, we're going to tighten them up. Man tight. Alright, so now we're all done. You just got to run through your lights, check everything's working, make sure the plate light's working. Parking sensors are walk past it, make sure they're all reading correctly. As far as opening, over centre, out the way, flick them out to your stoppers. They don't stop on the gas strut, so you don't have to be gentle with them. They do over centre, so once they're in, they'll hold themselves there. And finished.